Maryland U.S. Representative Johnny Olszewski. Of course, we all know him as Johnny O. He represents the 2nd Congressional District here in Maryland now, which goes beyond Baltimore County, as we were kind of just talking about now. And we just had to say thank you for joining us, especially on a Sunday morning.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So, Mr. O, let's start with the legislative session. You know, you're 100 days in. It's your first time being a congressman. Just talk with us about some of the things that you've seen in your first couple months here. You know, I know that there's the vote on the CR bill, and then, of course, one of the higher known bills, the Lake and Riley Act, was a big one, both of which that you voted no on. Just tell us a bit about your time in Congress so far.
Yeah, I mean, what I've seen since I've been in Congress has just been an absolute lack of focus on lowering costs for working families. It was the overwhelming issue of the election, and we're now on day 100. Today is the milestone where there's been not a single vote, not a single action to lower costs for hardworking Americans. And so I am beating the drum every day that Congress needs to take actions to lower costs. And so this CR that just passed was not bipartisan, and in fact, it actually guts critical lifelines for people who are hungry and providing food for our hungry children out there. It guts healthcare and drives up healthcare costs for those lucky enough to still have it. And then, unfortunately, we're doing all of this so that we can finance tax cuts for the ultra-wealthy, for billionaires. And so it's not that bipartisan approach that I've been used to as Baltimore County executive, where we brought people together. But I'm confident that if we keep telling the message and keep talking about what's happening, that we can change the narrative. Yeah.
And, you know, speaking about rising costs, tariffs, a huge thing that everyone's talking about, especially with the latest round that President Trump has put in. Talk a little bit about what you and the other Maryland Democrats are trying to tell the Secretary of Commerce and about the impacts that these tariffs could have on the Port of Baltimore, something that, of course, you're so familiar with.
Yeah, so we wrote a letter specifically about the Port of Baltimore, but these tariffs writ large are going to crush working families. We're talking about up to $3,000 per family for just basic goods and services, groceries and gas and everything in between. And you think about the fact that this continuing resolution and this budget plan that my Republican colleagues are trying to push through would lead to, on average, a $60,000 tax cut for the top 1%, while average Americans will see just a couple of $100s of tax relief. That will be more than wiped away by the thousands of dollars of impact on tariffs alone. And so you think about, between tariffs and then other actions, like we're trying now to see if we can repeal caps on overdraft fees. And you know, collectively, this is an assault on working families. It's really not what I think we were sent there to do. The president said he would lower costs on day one. He's now been in office for almost 3 months as well, and we're seeing the opposite with these actions. We're seeing our 401ks be assaulted. We're seeing costs go up. And so really, like, we're just there beating the drum, reinforcing the point that we have to lower costs and make things easier for Americans.
You know, how do you make it so that your constituents can follow what you're doing, especially on that front? Because I remember early days of when you were in office, you kind of had like a tracker or something, or like some kind of countdown or something. I remember something like that where you're just like, this is how many days, costs still haven't gone down. So how do people keep in touch with what you're doing?
Yeah, so if folks want to go on and check Rep. Johnny O on X, and then also I'm on Facebook and Blue Sky. And today, actually, we have that 100 days up on our tracker, or we will, because it is that unfortunate, you know, milestone. But I'd say also town halls, rallies. This weekend, I was in Baltimore. I was in Catonsville, rallying against some of the actions on Social Security, Elon Musk's assault on our privacy, protecting federal employees. So I'd encourage folks to stay in touch. We had a town hall just Thursday this week with almost 400 people who showed up. I really believe that being connected to the public we serve is so important, and so our office is proud to do that.
Yeah. So, you know, a few days ago, the House narrowly passed the budget blueprint. You were mentioning that there's a split among your Republican colleagues on the vote. You know, deficit hardliners saying that there's not enough spending cuts, moderates kind of saying maybe there are too much. You know, how do you see the Democratic response playing out over this as time goes on?
Yeah, and again, this goes back to like what we should be focused on. So we've got a budget plan that will cut trillions of dollars in social benefits, in healthcare, in veteran benefits, in food safety and food nutrition to feed our hungry kids and support the most vulnerable. But we're sending that money to billionaires while we're also blowing up the deficit. This is a budget plan that would increase our deficit by $4 trillion. So again, it goes back to, like, in the service of what? We're not increasing the debt to build new schools or put money back in the pockets of hardworking Americans. We're blowing up the debt. We're borrowing more money. We're taking away these critical lifelines, Medicaid, SNAP, other supports. And the benefit is to these billionaires. And so, again, I don't think that's what the American people want. I don't think that's what they voted for. And it's why me, along with so many of my fellow Democrats, are pushing back on this particular budget plan.
All right. You mentioned where people can follow you, but just what are some things that people should know?
You know, that if you do one thing every day, if you take one action every day, that you can join us in our fight. We are fighting back in the Congress. We're fighting back in the courts, and we're fighting back in the community. I've got legislation that would protect, actually I dropped my first bill just yesterday, would protect federal employees. My guest to the joint address was actually let go because she was promoted. She became probationary. So this is a bill that would offset that action and let her and others go back to their jobs. We're fighting back in the courts, over 100 cases filed, more than 50 successful. And in the community, write to us, call us. We want to hear from you, as we want to make sure that all of the representatives in Congress are hearing from their constituents.
All right, Representative Johnny O. It's still weird for me to say that. I still remember you as my county executive. So thank you again for joining us on a Sunday morning. It was really nice to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All righty, we're going to turn things over to